Welcome to everybody to the January session, our first session for 2019, RapidScale's CloudEmpower webinar series. Bob Buchanan, EVP of Sales, excited to be spending some time with you here today. If you followed us, you've noticed that we do these typically the first week of the month, typically the first Wednesday of the month, a little bit delayed this month, but that'll be consistent going forward. We'll either have more of a sales type theme and really how to empower our partners in the field, or more of a product and technical type theme. Today's theme, identifying the RapidScale customer and sales tips for managed deal to close. Obviously, it'll be sales centric. So like always, we will record the session. We will send out a recording at the end of the session to all participants and anyone who had actually registered. And that will be archived on our website within Cloud University. And at the end, if you have any questions, we'll stick around to make sure we get those answered, or you can email me at bob.buchanan@rapidscale.net. All right. So let's start out just with a quick look back. 2018 was just a phenomenal year for RapidScale, and it's my belief it was a phenomenal year for really all of us. The economy's cooking. The disruption in the marketplace has been fantastic. And while this is not, basically an elevator pitch on how great we did, I thought it would be wise, or at least beneficial, to give you a quick view into some of the things that we accomplished. Obviously, massive growth on the sales side. We had massive growth in our markets just due to hiring. Many of you might be familiar with the fact that we were acquired by Cox mid-year, and that was a phenomenal transaction for the business. So Irvine, California remains our headquarters, and we continue to grow with talent in Southern California. Yet we've really put a strong emphasis on the East Coast operations in Raleigh. And we basically have doubled the size of the company, and Raleigh's got a really nice footprint. But just from the talent standpoint, and on one slide I couldn't possibly list out everyone we've hired, but we've really brought in some great folks from the industry. To name a few, Brian Leonard, VP of Marketing. Duncan McDonald came to us from Navisite to be the Director of Product Development. Tyler Wendling came from a competitor to help us solidify what we're doing with our partner support as a new Partner Experience Manager based out of Denver. Jason Roberts, brand new to the team. He'll be helping us in the Chicago market. Roland Zakaria also came from Navisite, very talented solution engineer. And Sean Hatley, who is a tier point solution engineer that joined us here in Raleigh. So again, I don't have time to describe all the hires, but these are some key folks that I think are important to our partner community and really going to help us going forward. We're going to be more committed to partner enablement and the customer experience than ever before in 2019. So I mentioned a few things, right? So headcount basically doubled the size of the business. From a revenue standpoint, approximately 30% year-over-year growth in 2018. One of the things that we really found to be of great interest, and while the base and growing our customer share and kind of the land and expand strategy is still core to our growth, 55% of our sales bookings, meaning of all of our opportunities we closed in 2018, were new logo deals. And if you look across the supplier community out in the marketplace, that's an incredible number. Most of these folks, while they're certainly focused on bringing in new logos, the base is driving the majority of those deals, which is important. But without new logos, it's like oxygen. You need new logos to continue to compete and acquire share, and that is a direct attribute to our sales partners, bringing us our opportunities and helping us mature our funnel. So it's just an awesome stat. What I think is even more interesting, or equally interesting, is of those sales bookings in 2018, approximately, it's just under, but close to 70% of those deals, we kind of extrapolated what those deals look like, who the partners were. They really fit that traditional agent. And I really find that to be very interesting because we've grown our VAR practice. We're doing more with MSPs, and we have a diverse partner community that we really have been able to mature. But that traditional agent who typically wasn't selling cloud, had maybe been in business for years upon years of selling traditional telecom type services or CPE type services, has really started to make the shift. And I think we'll talk a little bit about what those characteristics are and what's actually happening. So who is the RapidScale customer? If you're spending time with myself or with any of our channel partner, our partner managers, our channel managers in the field, you'll often hear us talk about kind of that DNA or the profile of the right customer. And I think this is incredibly essential. The cloud space is very confusing. Who does what? Do these providers have a unique identity? If you follow RapidScale, we're known heavily in the industry for desktop as a service. We're also known for infrastructure as a service, DR as a service, and while you don't want to be known for everything, I'm confident that we can sit in front of a customer. If we had an opportunity to spend time with that customer, enough time with that customer, there's something within our portfolio that we could offer that client to solve a problem that's existing. But when you get down to it, who is the right customer, right? Are we all kind of chasing just anybody? And I think we like to argue that it's that mid-market and down. We look at those characteristics of somebody between 50 and 2,000 employees. I know that's a wide range, but really that's our sweet spot. We do some in the enterprise, but it's usually a unique scenario. But 100, 200, 500 employees, 1,000 employees, all day long. Typically, these are brick and mortar businesses, and you might say, well, what does that mean? These are mostly not technology-centric businesses that have a very deep IT staff. They're not typically doing their own software development or creating products. These are healthcare companies. Think of the multi-location dental practice or general practitioner. These are finance, hedge funds, accounting firms, PR and relation companies, manufacturers, retail, et cetera, et cetera. So I think of that brick and mortar business that has limited IT resources internal, often less than 10, perhaps less than 5. And you know what? Sometimes they have none, but they still are leveraging IT because there's a dependency on critical business apps to run the business. So that's the third thing we're finding, that, hey, we're not a technology company, but we need technology to run the business. Call me Captain Obvious, but this is out there right under our nose. We're seeing this every day, and I know you are too. And then those limited IT resources that are internal, a big characteristic is often these organizations are outsourcing or augmenting some of the core services to a third party. Very common, and it could be a managed service provider. It could be an IT consulting firm, and often those organizations find that they've become stretched. And in some scenarios, those might be our partner, and in other scenarios, it could end up being a competitive situation. But those are really like core characteristics. We'll give you a couple examples in a minute, but on top of all those, there's one that just becomes critical, and that is the existence of a compelling event. The compelling event motivating the customer to take some type of action. If you follow, coming out of the holidays, if you're familiar with the land of misfit toys, this is the land of the misfit deals. And we kind of joke internally, and I know some of our partners deal with the same issue, is it's one thing to be able to identify an opportunity, be fortunate enough to get an opportunity to put into your funnel, but what's the difference between a deal that stays at the top of the funnel and pushes from 1 month to the next month to the point where it might be 6 months later, and you're thinking, why is this deal still here? Well, we deal with those issues as well, right? We all do. But why is that? And we've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, and I think it comes down to a big common denominator is the compelling event. And oftentimes some of the things we're hearing are what we think are compelling events. They're actually symptoms or maybe important factors like, hey, my system isn't performing. It is performing poorly. We're running out of space or power in the data center. Right? We need DR, might be another one. We hear that all the time. Our internal team is stretched. And you know what? This is my favorite, right? The IT leader likes us, or they think our stuff is cool. We're going to be selected. It's kind of like having, you know, rabbit ears, or really just hearing what you want to hear versus what we need to hear. So symptoms tend to drive risk and reward type decisions rather than those factors that really create business value. And you know, when we can identify systems in the deal, but the deal isn't moving, what might be missing? It's the compelling event. And I took this from a blog that I was following, right? I think the definition really hit home. A compelling event has an economic owner, and I think that's absolutely key. I know that our team, and I'm certain that our partners deal with this all the time, you guys do, is we get aligned with, sometimes we're fortunate to be aligned with the economic owner, other times we're aligned with the technical owner. And maybe not having the right alignment can be a challenge, because we're hearing a lot about the symptoms or the factors, but not really the compelling event. So a compelling event, according to this blog, has an economic owner, a defined state, and a direct response to a business pressure. The action is expected to deliver a significant business result, either improving opportunity, capability, or reducing pain. Right? I think of it as revenue expansion or cost cutting, right? Potentially. The compelling event defines the reason for the economic owner to act, and the blog there referenced his thoughts on selling. The partners that are most successfully selling cloud services didn't all of a sudden become cloud experts. Some did, but not all of them. What we're seeing in this analysis is that there's just more focus on business outcomes, getting into the discussions with both the technical and the economic owner, and getting to a business outcome type discussion, and engaging maybe one horse, potentially two, but understanding your horses, getting into those deals, and team selling with. That's really where these deals are coming from. So a couple quick case studies, right? So we had a healthcare organization based out of Atlanta, 2,000 users, and obviously bound by compliancy, right? And it's most of the compliancy is HIPAA. It's all healthcare related, not necessarily a PCI scenario, but more PHI. And you might hear in a typical deal, what's very common is, you know what, I'm lacking redundancy. And that's what we heard. The technical buyers telling us, hey, we're lacking redundancy. We need to address this from an architecture standpoint and from a system standpoint. But at the end of the day, the real compelling event, what was really happening behind all this, is that without that compliancy, they were going to be fined. So there really was something that was driving them to take action. And I'll pause for a moment and give you an analogy. And this actually comes directly from the blog I was reading. If you think about, I have a car, and this is simplicity. Sometimes simplicity is bliss. But I have a car, and I have to get my oil change. Maybe I use synthetic oil every 7,500 miles. And I'm coming up on that mileage barrier, or that threshold, and this weekend I'm going to take my car and I need to get the oil change. But you know what? The weather outside's nice, or there might be a football game, or I want to spend time with friends and family, and I push it off. Another week, a month goes by. It's really preventive maintenance, and I'm going to get to it. There's something else that I deem is more urgent. Well, a compelling event in that scenario definitely exists. It's just not urgent. I'll compare that to my lease on my car, on that same car, expires on February 28th. I have to take action. And if I look at this scenario, right, you know what, we need to improve our redundancy. It has to happen. There's some risk here, and there's a reward for doing it. But I might be able to get by. My engine's not going to blow up. I'm going to bet the systems aren't going to crash. But you know what? I might get fined. That's a different scenario. Your customer is telling you there's an urgency to act. So another one quick is a mortgage company based out of Philadelphia. It's a pretty decent entity. It's a great name. Obviously, I'm protecting the client names here. But 700 users. And in this scenario, and I can't get into the details, it's very unique, but it definitely is a compelling event. The core group of IT leaders all left. And when I'm talking about left, they left a skeleton crew. I think it was one person that was supporting 700 users. So their local area network, their local domain, all the server infrastructure. So now you've got 700 users in this organization that are relying on help desks or entering support tickets. So the day-to-day business operations halted, and there's an economic impact there. So getting to the economic buyer and understanding they need a solution, there's a fish on. We definitely have a very strong, compelling event. Great deal, $11,000 a month in recurring revenue. Two more, right? Property management company out of South Florida. They had, different than your internal employees walking out, they actually went out and purchased DaaS, a Citrix DaaS solution from another company, not RapidScale, obviously, and that organization basically discontinued their Citrix practice. Really, they selected the wrong provider in that instance. 250 users, 6 offices. So if you think about the business outcome, very similar scenario where you've got their users could not get the support they were needing to run their day-to-day business. And this organization, being in property management, they've got salespeople on the street, commercial real estate people, they've got customers, there's invoicing, there's contracts, all the applications sit and they can't function. So this is not something that possibly could be delayed. This is not an oil change. This is, you know what? This is my lease. I have to act. Guess what? That deal closed. It was a 45-day sales cycle, $21,560. And then the last one, right? So a very specialized oral surgery firm, and this company, right? They're into consolidation of private practices in the oral surgeon space across the country. They're based out of Texas. But essentially the model is this. They're heavily invested in M&A. And when you acquire these different practices, you're inheriting a lot of their legacy IT systems and infrastructure. And that simply isn't scalable. So what they're trying to do is build a conglomerate that has a unified system for servers, compute, email, a unique domain across the enterprise. So these individual practices don't have to worry about the back office, and they can actually go out and focus on patient care. Well, to be able to do that as aggressively as they want to do, they had to put a system in place and rely on a provider like RapidScale to be able to do that. And this was not something that could be delayed 2 months, 3 months. They're bringing on a number of different acquisitions almost monthly. And quarter over quarter, it could be as many as 10 different small acquisitions, and any type of delay has a severe impact. So $13,000 a month, again, short sales cycle. And just understanding that, hey, there's real pain here, the compelling event's real, and we can see the economic buyer. So how do you leverage, the compelling event to maintain what I think is just immensely important, and that's alignment in the deal. We kind of think of it as like making sure you're checking your 6 throughout the entire sales process, from really the engagement phase early in the deal, top of funnel, all the way down to, hey, we're getting very close. We've gone through discovery, presentation, and we're trying to tee this up to close, right? But if you don't have a compelling event, or you can't find it, you can't see it, you need to work on it, because one probably exists, and if it doesn't, the customer's probably window shopping. And if you are able to find it, can you really intensify and create urgency, right? Can you make sure the compelling event remains a core piece of the sales process throughout? And I kind of think of it like this. When you're first doing discovery and you understand what that compelling event is, ensuring that the stakeholders, the economic buyer and the technical buyer, agree with you. And that allows you to go back and say, hey, you know what, you get cost pressure, price pressure. Can you go back and remind them of why we're here? We're here to solve the problem and address that compelling event. Using the compelling event shifts the deal from a technology discussion to a business discussion. This is what we've been saying, since the outset of the presentation today. That's the key, right? Getting away from speeds and feeds, which many of us, and by the way, including myself, love to talk about, but getting away from that and focusing on the business outcome and really what is the impact to the organization, either, again, revenue growth or probably some level of cost savings on the operations side. That's how these deals are getting won. And then gosh, can you get to the economic buyer? Again, hey, I need more storage. We need to expand storage. Well, why? Why is that? What happens if you don't? And if you don't take action, what actually could be the problem? Well, the economic buyer doesn't care. The economic buyer's sitting somewhere saying, you know what? We're bringing on M&A, or we've got these strategic plans, and I'm not really worried about expanding storage or my server infrastructure or the data center. I'm really worried about maintaining the business operations and meeting the goals of the organization. So thinking about, can I get to the compelling event? Can I identify it? Can I use it to my advantage in these deals that are going to lead to better business discussions versus speed and feed discussions, which going down that path leads us to, unfortunately, a very price-sensitive exercise that may make the deal very competitive. Getting to the economic buyer, focused on business outcomes, is really how these deals, again, or how we're winning them, selling side by side. I was introduced to a book recently that really was very useful in some of the methodologies we implement across our own sales staff that I wanted to make a recommendation to the partner community, Selling Above and Below the Line. And this is by a gentleman by the name of William Skip Miller. And basically his argument is there's a line in every organization, and it's a simple concept, but the technical buyers are below the line and the economic buyers are above the line. And they both have different decision-making criteria, and they both have different needs and wants, but there is alignment between the two. And the most successful sales folks are able to really understand that distinction. So with that, we're going to kind of get to the end here. This is a little bit of a shorter exercise this week, more of just selling tips and thinking about how can we get better aligned in some of these cloud deals. And as we work together in the field, thinking about what's the compelling event. Why are these customers actually buying cloud services? It's probably not because they have to or they want to. There's a compelling event driving them to make a decision that's going to lead to a better result. I will say this, we are hiring. We are hiring aggressively. We're looking for account managers, channel managers, and we're expanding our national sales team. A big factor, it's a natural factor of growth, is headcount. And to continue to accommodate a healthy growth and surpass what we did in 18. And by the way, we think 19 is going to be our biggest year yet. We've got to add talent. So if you in the partner community can think of folks that might be culturally a great fit for RapidScale, we'd love to hear from you and certainly welcome those introductions. At this point, I'm going to pause, and Summer, I'll loop you in and see if there were any questions.
Hey, Bob, we have a couple. So first, is there a customer that is too small for RapidScale?
I hate to turn away business. Thank you, Summer. I hate to turn away business. That customer that's maybe 1 or 2, 5, less than 10 is probably too small. I think there might be some exceptions to that rule. We certainly go below 50. Probably don't have a lot of customers below 25. At that point, you're probably just getting, if anything else, priced out of the equation. Thanks.
Yep, and just one more. In 2019, who do you see as RapidScale's biggest competition?
Yeah, so, I mean, the cloud space is filled with a lot of competitors. There's no shortage of folks that are doing infrastructure. There's no shortage of folks that are doing DR. I think we're uniquely positioned with DAS. That competitive landscape is a little more thin. But I'll tell you this, I think instead of it being one company, I think that in the market that we're serving, which I kind of classify as the underserved market, that maybe mid-market and down, if you go back to the characteristics of the customer, I got to tell you, I think the third-party IT or MSP and the internal, the opportunity to do this internally without any assistance is our biggest competitor. It's really, hey, can I do this myself, number one? Can I look towards an MSP or a third-party IT company that might have a traditional IT mindset versus a cloud mindset? the vast majority of our deals, that's what we're up against versus getting into opportunities where we're up against the hyperscalers or up against maybe a rack space. That certainly exists, but less common than the former.
And Bob, we actually just had another come in, if you're good with that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So you presented the holistic view of the compelling event. At what point is it good to bring in RapidScale if the compelling event is still being explored?
That's a great question. And, I think that there's a lot of organizations out there that have direct sales teams that are a lot of service providers, I should say, that maybe look like us or be bigger than us. They've got direct sales teams, and they complement their direct sales strategy with channel. And the problem with those organizations is that channel is not top of mind. We at RapidScale have built our entire sales organization to be, number one, channel friendly, but to be built on the premise that we're here to help you serve your clients and drive revenue. So in that spirit, we want to sell with model. So it's never too early. We want to be brought in early to strategize and help you. And that is absolutely our preference and the recipe for the most success.
And we just got another one since we have a couple
awesome.
Minutes left.
Yeah.
I'll still go. Does RapidScale leverage Office 365, G Suite, or AWS integrations, or at a minimum provide migration services from those environments?
Migration services from all environments are available. So if someone's on one of those platforms, those third-party platforms, our professional services team will lead the entire migration should the customer desire or lack the internal expertise to do so. In fact, I'd say like 8 out of 10 deals, that's exactly what happens, right? We do all that in-house. From a, how do we interact and interface and kind of work with those platforms, I'll start with them on the Microsoft side. So RapidScale is a Microsoft cloud service provider, so we are a CSP. We've got a deep Microsoft practice. I mentioned at the onset, we just brought in Duncan McDonald. He's going to help further expand that practice, but we sell a heck of a lot of Microsoft Office 365 today. That's a lot of drag just due to the fact that we've got over 20,000 desktops under management. So these customers that need Office 365 support, very good low-hanging fruit for us in a very rich part of the business. Of course, Microsoft then has, they play in the hyperscaler world with Azure. And I realize that wasn't part of your question, but since you asked about AWS, I'll just hit the Azure piece. We'll do things like, ADFS in Azure, which is like extending a domain environment into their ecosystem and manage that on behalf of a customer. We are looking from a roadmap perspective into DR as a service into Azure, and I think that's more of the natural path for us as we get into 2019. The AWS is platform. We don't do as much. Doesn't mean that we're not gonna, but I don't see that as maybe as rich of an environment for us in the short term. A lot of these customers we're dealing with are Microsoft shops, so it's natural. That's the ecosystem that's probably going to lead us to a more fruitful and financial path in the near term. And then you asked about G Suite. Today we don't do very much there, and I don't necessarily know if we'll take that path as aggressively. Simply for the reason that while they're acquiring share, again, the vast majority of these organizations for their business functions are Microsoft heavy.
And that is it for questions.
Awesome questions. Awesome talking with you. It is January. We're probably dusting our sales shoes off, and let's get out there and look forward to seeing everybody in the field and on the road. And thanks again. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you in February. If I don't see you sooner. Thanks, Summer. Bye.